some issues with today's show. I know you're tuning in to see Sean Cullen, and Sean is actually going to join us in a few seconds, but you're also tuning in to see Ed the Sock, and look who's here. It's Ed the Sock. Yeah, what the hell are you talking about? I'm not Ed the Sock. Who the hell do you think you are? Does it look like Ed the Sock?
Sorry, Michael. That's really awful. That sock looks sick.
I thought the eyes were pretty sexy. Sorry, I thought the eyes were pretty sexy.
Well, they are.
I'm Ed the Sock. Shut up, Sean. I'm Ed the Sock's brother, Ted. Shut up and let me go to work. I don't know what this is in my mouth, but you know what? I was just about to go someplace that would be suggestive of something overly sexual, and I thought to myself, no, that's not what this show is about. So Ed the Sock will be joining us tomorrow as opposed to today. You did a great song for Ed the Sock, something that could have turned into a duet. And we can't use it today, but you can bet we'll use it tomorrow. So you don't even know who the guest on the show is going to be.
Well, I don't.
I'm going to tell you who it is, and then I'm going to get Phil to cut to me full screen, and you come back. Can you write a song in 30 seconds?
I think so.
Okay.
How interesting the person is.
Yes. His name is Corey Hirsch. Corey, you know Corey Hirsch, right? I'll give you a few details. Silver medalist in 1994, played for the Vancouver Canucks largely, also played for the New York Rangers. He played for the Washington Capitals, I think 2 games. He also played 1 game for, I forget who it was. Dallas Stars. Yes, look at you. How the hell did you know that? And he played in Sweden, and he played in, hold on one sec, I got this, Deutschland. Also known as Germany. So Sean Cullen, that's what you need to know about Corey Hirsch. Also, of course, well known for having a bad case of OCD, and has decided that he is going to change the way people see OCD and mental illness. And he's my buddy, and he's my fellow warrior. He's your fellow warrior. Go. 30 seconds. We'll come back to Sean in a second. All right. Phil, you can cut back to me and then go to Sean in 30 seconds. So today, Corey Hirsch is going to join us. Also, Julie Goldenson is going to join us. Yeah, is she hot? Oh, my God. You put a sock on your hand and you put a cigar in its mouth, and all of a sudden he's saying offensive things. I asked, is she hot? She is really smart, and she's going to talk to us about trying to preserve our marriage through this, likely the toughest time for many, because how many people have spent this much time looking face to face, eye to eye, day after day? It can take its toll. She's got some ideas, and we continue to build the excitement for the chef recovery. 12 years he's been in recovery. I think he's recovered, but can't let down your guard. He's going to join us tomorrow. He'll have recipes that fit in with the theme of what we're doing. All right, let's bring him back now. Sean, that's as much time as you get. You good to go?
Yes, but I want to divorce you now, and it's only been what? A minute?
I know. You know what? We'll work it out. I swear to God, I'll be better. I swear to God. Yeah, divorce him. Okay. What do you got, Sean?
Okay. It's a nation in isolation. It's a nation in isolation. It's a difficult situation. It's a nation in isolation. Now's a good time to take out our frustrations. Corey Hirsch, he's got red hair. It's too bad that not a lot of it is there. He's great. He played in goal. He played with heart, and he played with soul. It's a nation in isolation. It's a difficult situation. It's a nation in isolation. Now it's difficult time of celebration. Corey Hirsch, he was a ranger to mental health. He is no stranger. He won a silver at Lillehammer, and nothing really rhymes except stammer. It's a nation in isolation. It's a difficult situation. It's a nation in isolation. This is where ideas come for percolation. Yeah.
Yeah, that was awesome, man. Holy
he wouldn't say that.
Smokes.
He would say it was. He would say
no, he wouldn't. Yeah, that was great, Sean. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah. You want to say hi to Corey Hirsch?
Hi, Corey Hirsch. Thanks for Lillehammer. That was almost gold. You know what I mean? And you're on a stamp. aren't you? That's pretty
Everything
good.
that was in that song was partially true.
Okay, good.
It's true,
What?
right? It's
What?
all good.
Lilyhammer was true? Or was it
Lilyhammer's true.
Albertville?
No, it was Lillehammer.
So what's wrong with that? Did you play for the Rangers?
Then I played a few games for the Rangers. And,
Right. Well, I mean, if you're only talking about teams you played more than a few games for, then it would be only Vancouver, right? I mean,
right. Yes.
Like, I don't mean that in a disparaging way.
No, not at all.
So what did he have not 100% correct?
Well, the hair thing is kind of like, but he is kind of correct. Like, I don't have much left. So I guess he's right.
Well, it's very beautiful what you have left.
It's true. You know what? Beautiful. It's not about quantity of hair. It's all about quality. You're still the flaming redhead to me. Thanks, Sean.
Thanks, you,
Sean.
Okay,
appreciate it. We'll talk to you tomorrow. And thanks for everything. Thanks for all of your contributions. You know what? I think you're awesome. Shut up. Quit sucking it. Whoa.
Wow.
Oh my God. Seriously, you put a puppet on your hand and all of a sudden he's saying stuff like that.
Is that a puppet on your hand or you're just glad to see me?
Ask me now.
Whoa.
Thanks, man.
See ya.
All right, Corey, let's you and I talk. How you doing? Corey Hirsch has been on the show before. And we learned at that time, I mean, I knew it before, but OCD really basically robbed you of your life, robbed you of the enjoyment of what should have been a terrific career. And whether you played a handful of games or 100 games or 200 games, you were a professional goaltender, which is a massive thing. Were you able to enjoy any of it?
I would honestly say no. And that's really, that's a hard question to answer because I've never really thought about it. And, that's something that I'll have to ponder at one point because looking back, no, I didn't enjoy it and I should have. It should have been the time of my life.
Yeah, I mean, but that is, in a lot of ways, that's what mental illness does. It robs us of our life. The greatest tragedy, and this is not something I'm just thinking off the top of my head, but the greatest tragedy obviously is suicide when it comes to mental illness. But it's not the only tragedy. When you give up years of your life, months of your life to an illness that prevents you from doing anything enjoyable, that's pretty tragic too.
It really is. And you know what? No one's ever asked me that question you just asked me. And that's I think that's probably one of the most important things you can ask somebody, when trying to learn about them. And you're right. Like it's hard to look back, but I will say this, and you probably feel the same way. Like when you were starting out on television, it should have probably been the time of your life. And I don't know your background quite that far, but I'm
Jewish. Okay. Let's get it out there. I'm Jewish.
But, now with what I'm doing, this far proceed, like it makes everything worth it. Any win that I ever had in the National Hockey League, Olympics, whatever, it doesn't even compare to the work of, when someone comes and says to me that you helped them.
Yeah, not even I mean, to give you my background, when I started my TV career, I had no depression at all. It wasn't until the first year of Off the Record that I learned that, wow, you know what? This was my, I guess my credibility is kind of messed with a little bit with the puppet on my hand, with the sock on my hand. It's, I'm talking very seriously about mental illness. Quit your fucking whining. Whoa. Okay. I got to take this off because that is out of control. But, I wasn't until I remember one day looking at my life and trying to consider why I had stopped doing the things that I really enjoyed doing. And it was this moment where a light went on and it was like, oh my gosh, I am gone and I have been replaced by someone and I don't like that person and I don't want to be that person. And while that was really painful for me to think about, it was also a revelation that said, you got to go to the doctor. And it was that revelation, as painful as it was, that when I went to the doctor, I walked in and I actually said, I know what's wrong with me. Like, I know I've got severe depression, but doc, you got to do your work and you got to diagnose me, obviously.
How old were you?
I was 40, I guess 40.
So it was later. Later.
I had anxiety as a kid, though. You know what? Let's reverse this. Why don't you ask me some questions?
I'd love to. Yeah,
I think you are already. Okay, I'll introduce you. Today, substituting for Michael Landsberg on Isolation Nation, right. Corey Hirsch.
Well, and how long did you, before you went and got help, how long do you think you suffered for, or didn't even realize?
I would say probably 6 months, 8 months, because it was just a tiny change in me, so imperceptible that I didn't know it was happening. So, it wasn't like, and I've used this analogy before. It wasn't like someone hit me with a baseball bat in the ribs. I wouldn't have to go, oh my gosh, why do I have these pains in my ribs? It was this tiny, tiny change that when you added it up over 6 months, all of a sudden it was a massive change, but it happened so slowly, I didn't know it was happening.
Yeah. Did anybody else recognize in you? And then,
oh yeah, everybody.
Was it hard for you to get help? Yeah. Like, did you go through that too, where you're like that denial kind of stage where you're like,
no, I guess to some extent,
yeah,
I guess to some extent I did. I mean, I had a false start. I went to my family doctor, and basically, and I love the guy, so. I don't think it was his greatest day on the job, but he kind of said, you don't want to get started with medication, and you don't want to, just get out there. And then he goes, like, you're so happy. Like it was all of the cliches wrapped in one in that little office when he was talking to me. And I left there without anything other than get out there and just have some fun, and it obviously that wasn't great advice.
Did you worry about your job and your show and when you went and you found out that you had depression because of the stigma and all that? Were you concerned about that?
No, it's funny because when I came back from my appointment with the psychiatrist, I had a prescription for Prozac, which, by the way, I was in so much pain that I went downstairs into the lobby. There was a drugstore there. I bought a bottle of water. I filled the prescription and I took the first pill because I was desperate to feel better. I just wanted it so badly. And at that point, and you probably understand this, when you recognize that there was something really wrong with you, you would have done anything to get better. Like at that point, if someone would have said, you know what? I'm going to hack off your pinky finger on your right hand, but you're going to get all better. I would have gone, all right, do it. Let's get it. Let's get it on. That's how badly I wanted it.
I just said, cut my arm off. Right.
Like, oh yeah. Oh, you had to one up me, didn't you, Hirsch? Yeah, I cut off my finger. You would have cut off your arm.
If that was even going to make me even feel more better, like it was, I get exactly what you're talking about. So how long did it take you to tell your employer from that point, or people around you? Were you able to come out with it right away pretty much?
I never walked into my employer's office and said, I have this, but I talked about it at work. Like I said, when I got back to work after this psychiatrist appointment, I said to everyone, hey, guess what? I'm on Prozac. And, so like, I never bought into the stigma. As a matter of fact, I mean, this is going to sound so dense, but I never knew there was a stigma. Honestly, like, because it was so foreign to me, the thought that maybe people would look at me differently. It never occurred to me that people would look at me differently. So I never hesitated to talk about it.
Yeah. So at what point did you realize, like, I need to help other people? Like,
it was, this is good, man. This is good. It's fun.
Yeah.
This is great being on this end of it. Hey, Casey's doing pretty good, isn't he? No. Hirsch sucks. You suck, Hirsch.
That's fine. That? I used to hear that when I played too. It's okay.
Yeah, no, she gave you the thumbs up. I guess it was in November of 2009. Stefan Richer, who you would know, may have scored a goal on you. He was a guest on Off the Record because he was in Battle of the Blade, so he was in Toronto. I never met him before. When I was finished preparing for the show, I went down to the green room moments before I had read, and I'll speak quick here. It's your show, so I don't want to dominate it. And I went into the green room, and I said, hey, Stefan, can I see you outside for a sec? So he said, sure. I said, look, I just read that you suffered from depression in the 1990s. Is that true? And he said, yes. And I said, would it be okay if I asked you about it? I don't want to embarrass you or I don't want to cause you pain. He goes, well, it's very painful for me. So I said, okay, well, then I'm glad I prefaced the show with that. But if you'll talk about it, I'll talk about it. And he said, you? And I said, yeah, me. And it was kind of like the classic, you? Really? You got this bounce in your step, it's typical of people with our illness that we don't look like the people always with our illness. So we said, okay. So we went on the air before the third commercial. Hey, Stefan, how you doing? I heard that you suffered from depression in the 1990s. And he told a bit of a story about how he held the Stanley Cup up in the air and all he could think about was getting back into bed and pulling the covers over his head and getting away from everyone and everything. And then when he won the Cup in New Jersey, he attempted to take his own life 5 days later, driving home. So I said to him, I said, look, I don't have obviously the wild success that you've had with 2 Stanley Cups, and I don't have a suicide attempt to talk about. But I can talk exactly about the feeling of holding up the Stanley Cup, the equivalent in my life, whatever it was, and just wanting to get out of there, just so badly wanting to retreat. So the next day, that was it. The next day, we started getting emails, mostly from men, and all of them saying it was the first time they've heard 2 guys talking about mental illness without shame and without embarrassment and without seeming weak. And that changed my life.
Wow, what a story. So then everybody starts to come forward and talk to you, and people, do you find that people will, like, I find that people come up to me and just tell me stuff now. Like they feel
for sure.
To me, like, and then you try to help them. Do you find that if when you do so much of this, I find sometimes I can get really drained at times, and I need to, like, all of a sudden self-care as well for myself when you start getting other people talking to you. Do you find that there's times you need to take a break?
That's a question that only someone in your position could really frame the way you framed it, which is, I experienced this. How about you? Yeah. And, I would say there are elements of that for me, for sure, especially when you communicate, as I do, with people that have really serious problems and suicide is on their mind. And then, I feel this huge obligation to be there at all times. And then sometimes I can't live up to my own expectations. And then I start to go, I'm letting this person down. But, I got my own struggles. Like when I feel really good, then that kind of stuff comes way easier. But when I'm struggling, it becomes a chore. And then the guilt starts to set in because I'm going, okay, well, I'm letting that person down. And guilt is a huge part of mental illness.
Yeah. It's the self-care stuff, right? Like if I don't watch, like I'll notice I'll feel good. But then if you take too much on at once, and there's so many people that reach out to you, like way, way more than me. Like I always wondered how you deal with that balance, because you want to help people, but you got to take care of you too.
The problem is I could never say no right away. So here's the guilt that I deal with. And the guilt is that I get a lot of emails, and a lot of direct messages, and, people find different ways to electronically communicate with you. Right. And sometimes I'll go, oh yeah, I should respond to that person, but I can't do it right now because, I'm doing this, or I'm doing a radio show, or I'm giving a speech, or I'm having dinner with my family. So I'll say, I'll get to it later. And I am known to be incredibly unorganized. And as a result, sometimes I'll forget. And then I'll get an email a month later saying, hey, thanks for letting me down. I thought you were the one person that I could count on. Yeah. And I feel terrible. And I understand why they would say that. I don't get defensive and go, well, do you know what it's like having to, answer random strangers? I mean, I've asked for that role. I have assumed that role, but sometimes I can't live up to that role.
Yeah. And do you find, that brings me to another topic. Being a bit unorganized, I'm the same way. Do you deal with that? Do you think that's because of having mental illness? Or do you think
I think that my lack of organizational skills, which have always plagued me. I mean, I'm trying to see if, hey, Kara, can you hand me that board there? Not only do I struggle with organizational skills, but it comes out in my handwriting as well. And, it's just a bunch of gobbledygook that, see, today I was trying to shot list the guest that's coming up next. We recorded her segments and I had to pick the clips that we wanted to use to cut it down. Yeah. And I just can't get words down on paper. If I have to write the word anthropology, which God knows why I would ever have to write that word, but I would get to the ANTHRO and then I would give up.
Yeah.
So all you would see was anthro. And you could say, oh, well, that's just a short form, but it's not. So I think my dyslexia, which has probably interrupted my life as a whole more than anything else, just makes it impossible to write by hand. And the fact that computers were created and laptops were created saved my life for sure, my professional life.
Yeah. Here's the thing, though. You've been incredibly successful through all of this, right? And that's I think that's inspiring for a lot of people. I felt like, did you ever go through a point? So when I was at my worst, it was 1995, 96-ish. And I remember going to bookstores, because we didn't have internet, obviously, and looking for some form of hope that I wouldn't be like this, that I could still be successful, that I could still, and I found nothing. And it was so discouraging that's why I do what I do today, is because people, I believe, look for hope. Did you ever get to that point too, yourself?
Well, that word hope is in the mental health dictionary. Hope would be, if you ranked words in order of importance, hope would be on the first page for sure. Yeah. There'd be a handful of other words that come up regularly, but hope is an absolute key word, because the absence of hope is what leads people to try to take their own lives, right? I don't think people typically take their own life if they go, I really think I can get better. It's when you go, I know I'm not going to get better, even though there may be cause for optimism. There may be no reason to think that, but the belief that there's no chance you are going to get better is massive. And it leads you to either stay in bed, because it's like, what the hell's the point getting out of bed? Nothing good's going to happen. Or it leads you to an even worse place. Yeah. So when you don't have it, as you talked about, that's when really bad stuff happens. And what guys like you can do is that you can bring hope to people. Like Corey Hirsch, you're there. You're saying, hey, I played in the NHL. I went to the Olympics. I did all of these things, but they didn't bring me joy. And if that's your life right now, speaking to somebody else, then I'm here to tell you that I get joy in my life right now. So I have made it back to a place where I can say I'm pretty good. And that is somebody else's hope.
Yeah. And that's exactly, you just said it perfectly, because that's why I do what I do today, really, is because I saw nothing. I found nothing. And it was so discouraging. So, it's so great what you do.
No, stop that, because because then I'm going to have to come back and say to you, well,
no, I don't want compliments.
No, I don't want it either. So
you can rip on me.
You can rip on me too. It'd be way easier, because I have no comeback for a compliment, but I have plenty of comebacks for insults. But having said that if you're going to compliment me legitimately on being an advocate for mental health sharing, then you're in essence complimenting yourself. So stop bragging there, Corey Hirsch. Hold on one sec, Hirsch. I want to roll the doc.
Go ahead.
Julie Goldenson has some tips for us all week long. I'd look for someone who could help us with our hair, because God knows, it's going over my ears over here, man. I just keep putting more and more stuff in my goop in my hair, and it keeps it reasonably under control. That was a couple of weeks ago. This week, it's all about trying to help you with ideas to make it a little bit easier to be with a partner in a relationship. So here's Julie, part 2. Roll it, Phil. Pandemic Survival, a limited series from Isolation Nation. This week, from Soulmate to Cellmate, how to help your marriage survive. Hit it, Sean.
She's Julie Goldenson. Julie Goldenson. If you're in the market for a psychologist, Julie G is the top of the list. Yeah.
I don't know what day this is of isolation, but it may feel like day number 1,000 if you're not necessarily isolating with exactly the right person, or if you haven't thought about how not to drive each other crazy. To help us with that, we have our Dr. Julie Goldenson, who is a forensic and clinical psychologist, also on the board of the Ontario Psychological Association, and perfect for us, part of the OPA's Disaster Response Network COVID-19 COVID-19 task force. Welcome back to the show.
Thank you. Thanks for having me on.
So are there any particular themes per se that you're seeing in terms of what couples are actually fighting about?
Sure. I'm obviously not speaking personally on this, but I do notice that I'm seeing an uptick on irritability and displaced feelings right now, and that seems to be pretty common. Can you relate to that?
Not really. I think my wife and I, this is not a huge change for us because I've never worked normal hours.
Yeah.
So, being home together and I'm a homebody anyway. So I think it's a lot more difficult for people, if one spouse was a lawyer and used to leaving the house at 7 a.m. and coming back at 8 p.m. Now, all of a sudden, there's a lot of face-to-face.
Yeah. And I'm definitely going to talk about that the dosage of our relationships have changed for some and some more so than others. But for the people who are feeling irritable, I think that can be quite normal. We're so used to having daily routines. And for some, it's not that disrupted if you sort of live together, work together, have sort of non-9-to-5 jobs. But for others who are used to having that dosage kind of buffered a bit by going to work or going to recreational activities or taking kids to activities, we're now seeing a lot more of each other, as you said. And as the adage goes, sometimes familiarity can breed contempt or at very least some irritation. And this is particularly the case when we're staring at each other, sometimes in our sweatpants from morning to night, and small things can irritate us more. So people might find themselves irritated with their partners chewing or heavy breathing or whatever it is. Not Eric,
clearly,
not my partner.
No. Well, clearly you have now compromised the doctor-patient confidentiality with my wife because it is alleged that I make a lot of noise when I chew. Alleged, but not necessarily proven.
There's actually a condition called, I think, misophonia, which is like people that cannot stand other people's chewing sounds. Yeah. So
okay,
anyway,
well,
you can Google that. That's for later. Another thing that I'm noticing, because we're talking about what people are sort of getting into arguments about or having some conflict about, has to do with people's competing needs. And that sometimes people really sort of feel like their individual needs are pitted against their partner's needs. And that can be really hard. I think one way this manifests is for introverts and extroverts. I think for people who are introverted, they need some time to themselves to recharge. And they're used to getting that through that diluted dose that I was talking about. Whereas extroverts kind of gain their energy through other people. So that's a real challenge. And most of us are somewhere in the middle. But for people who are kind of polarized on either end, the introverts might feel a bit smothered and confined, and the extroverts might feel a little bit lonely or abandoned. So there's some tension there.
Right. So I would imagine the key is to strike a balance for each partner, meeting their own needs, but also the needs of their partner. And if you have kids, the entire family.
Yeah. And that's often a tricky balance to strike, admittedly. But it's really amazing to me as a psychologist how many people are kind of ashamed of having needs and how they conflate having a need with being selfish. And that's especially the case with parents. So I think as the saying goes on airplanes, you got to kind of put your own oxygen mask on first before you can really take care of others.
Whoa. Secure your own mask first and then assist the child.
And that people need to reframe that it's not selfish to have a need, that often it can be self-preserving and preserving for the relationship. And sometimes it doesn't take much to feel a little bit better. Are you struggling not to be on right now?
Am I struggling not to be on?
No, to yawn.
Oh, no. I thought you meant because you were on camera and I wasn't on camera.
No.
You saying, Michael loves the camera so much, he's struggling.
No, you're projecting. I was like, I saw like, oh, yeah. I'm
fascinated by it,
okay.
And I'm teasing you too.
Okay.
Well, actually, I'm not teasing when I say I'm fascinated by it. Okay, I'll give you 20 seconds. Give us some tips for communication. Maybe
sure.
30. Go.
Thank you. That's very generous. Thank you. Okay, first, you got to identify your needs. Second, you need to find constructive ways to communicate, which is what you really asked about, and find strategies as a couple to support each other in getting these needs met, knowing it's for the greater good. Short and sweet. Stay away from blaming and demanding, and aim for more of a it's not you, it's me kind of thing, even if it is them.
It's not you, it's me.
30 seconds?
I think you have a couple of seconds to spare. Let's carry that over to tomorrow. Thank you so much. Let's talk about what good coping looks like. We'll do that tomorrow, okay?
Look forward to it. Thank you.
That's pretty useful advice, I think. Corey, you're currently in a relationship, right? Because I just went on I just went on Grindr, and it said that you're in a relationship currently. But that's it's all sound advice, I think.
I think it's all fantastic advice. Anything that can help sure does. I guess you just outed me on Grindr, though. Thank you.
Well, I think I outed myself too.
What are you doing on Grindr?
The same thing you're doing on Grindr. Yeah, we all know what that is. Thank you for doing this. Time for one more question.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
One more question for you?
Yeah.
My roles are youth and masculinity. Those are the things that I try and talk about as much as I can. Did masculinity ever play a role in your possibly not getting help, or how does that, or with everything that you do, where does masculinity fit into all that?
Well, weren't you listening when the guy was talking? He said he never felt this stigma before. He never had a problem thinking about it. Christ, Hirsch,
very true.
The hell's the matter with you?
Egos.
That was never that was never really a factor for me. And it was weird because I never associated mental illness with weakness or with stigma. And it's just how I'm programmed.
Why do you think that is?
I don't know.
Yeah.
I think part of it was just having experienced professionally the things that I did, that I was always a polarizing guy, that I learned not to care what people thought of me. And maybe I carried that over into the whole area of mental health. But I just know that I never really cared.
Yeah. No, and that's a great place to be, because I'm sure you've interviewed many an athlete that masculinity gets in the way. It got in the way of me. It gets in the way of all of us. And we need to change that. I talk about that with you all the time.
Yep.
And we need to change what masculinity is, and getting help does not mean, that you're less of a man because of it.
CoreyHirsch.com.
Yep. If you want to go look, I do stuff on my Facebook page. Had a great interview with Daryl Sador the other day. He's a guy that you might want to talk to if you ever get a chance.
Yeah. I was reading about him.
He's doing really well. He's 7 or 8 months into recovery now. Seems to be in a much better place. So I'm really proud of him. And what a career. He had 2 Stanley Cups. Good dude. And your interview with Jamie Soleil was outstanding.
Yeah.
I wanted to hear more. I was like, I want to hear more, right? I had no idea. You truly have no idea the people with the depths of what they go through. Jamie Soleil to me was a national hero, right?
Yeah. No, I agree. That's what you find out when you talk to people and you ask them a question. I always ask in advance because I don't want to put anyone on the spot, obviously.
Yeah.
But I say, look, I'm going to ask you if it's okay. Have you experienced mental health battles? And if not you, someone you cared about, because that includes almost everybody on the planet, either themselves or somebody they cared about. And when you ask that question and you don't know the answer, sometimes you're shocked and you go, oh my gosh, I never knew. And, I heard the same sort of thing from Tessa Virtue, who talked about how she was bullied and how she was alone and how she never felt comfortable and she always felt isolated. And none of us ever perceive people like Tessa or like Jamie, who are, on the surface, they have everything going for them, including wild success. I mean, Tessa has got 3 gold medals. Tessa Virtue is, smart. So is Jamie. And yet none of that seems to play a factor.
No.
Thanks, man. Thanks for coming in and doing this. As
awesome.
Always, people should look at you and say, you know what? I should probably bring that guy into my place of work or my school or my business, because you're good at this, man.
No, thank you. You know what? It was my pleasure to be able to ask you some questions.
Let's do this again. I like answering questions. Thanks, man. Hold on. We'll talk in a second. But right now, as we wrap it up, Ed the Sock tomorrow. What about today? It takes its toll on your throat, Tomorrow, plus who else, Case? You could say it out loud.
The chef.
The chef?
The chef.
Oh, I'm going to the chef now.
Natalie Harris.
Yeah, Natalie Harris, also known as Paramedic Nat, who was a paramedic worker and suffered from severe PTSD. Like you, she's got a really important story to tell. And Chef Recovery, 12 years he's in recovery. And as we wrap it up, Phil, let's talk Chef Recovery. Let's roll his tape, and we'll see you tomorrow.
Hey folks, Chef Recovery, Isolation Nation, can't wait to see you tomorrow. We're going to be cooking the flourishing French toast sandwich.
French toast, please.
Everybody needs to flourish in their recovery. And when I mean flourish, that means turn into a brand new person, from the old into the new. And when it comes to the French toast sandwich, it likes to flourish on the fry pan and fluff up. That's what flourishing's all about. What we're going to be doing is we're going to bring you simple, easy recipes that you can do at home with your family, your kids, your husband, your wife, and even maybe the goat. The famous goat could make the flourishing French toast. Isolation Nation, I'll see you tomorrow.
Let's get some f***ing French toast.